247 years after John Paul Jones carried the war to Britain's shores at Whitehaven, a group of UK billionaires are launching a modern reverse raid, not with cannon fire, but with business tactics designed to quickly dominate the American market. So, who is behind this reverse raid on America? The outfit is called QA USA Incorporated. Their owner is CVC Capital Partners, a UK-based investment firm backed by some of Britain's wealthiest individuals. Their website, viewed January 2, 2026, states that QA USA Incorporated is North America's fastest-growing technology and digital training partner. It's not clear if Canada is part of their definition of North America. CVC also own QA Limited, which they claim is the UK's largest training provider. Is there truth behind their claims? Check for yourself, but researching this shows QA Group have no official metrics to corroborate this claim. The organization has had an alarming 16% drop in revenue in 2025, prompting them to seek a wider market. We'll follow with some more details a little later in this video. For their transatlantic push, the group have placed a real, live British knight at the helm. Britain's honor system is built on tradition and public trust. However, an investigation by Rupert Murdoch's The Sunday Times reported that the knight at the center of this story was raising some eyebrows, a phrase that, in British terms, signals concern over questionable conduct. The UK monarch, Charles III, has the power to cancel an honor such as a knighthood. According to the newspaper, the reporting detailed a dual website strategy, one aimed at UK government clients with significantly higher prices, and another marketing the same services at far lower costs. Here's a parallel situation to illustrate their practices. Imagine a pharma company directing federal government purchasing authorities to their high-fee website. However, the pharma company has a second website that doesn't appear to belong to them and charges around 35% of the fees. People might wonder if that dog will hunt. You're viewing the actual figures showing a cost disparity of over 60% between the two sites for the exact same training event. QA Group had these contradictory statements audited by Deloitte before filing them with the UK government. This lack of integrity alone is enough to deter any potential purchaser. The claims that both sites are competitive is clearly an untruth. Moving closer to home, investor materials from the Knights Company describe the product now being promoted toward the US market as delivering a higher gross margin. Their annual reports indicate that they're losing clients, and that what was once something of a cash cow has lost momentum, and the trend is downward. Recall that QA have massive debts and have what they describe as a high-margin revenue generation from their UK university collaborations, not the wisest term to use with increasingly cost-conscious international students. When it comes to their higher education offerings, there seems to be something rotten in Denmark. Affordability is now a key decider for purchasers, and knowing that CVC own two $50 million yachts, there is a big question about value. Language such as higher gross margins and client churn raises questions about whether branding and positioning are being used to justify substantially higher prices for American customers. At a time when the UK government is publicly complaining about trade barriers and tariffs, this approach by a British firm does little to ease transatlantic tensions. It has also emerged that this knight serves as an advisor to the UK Treasury, the equivalent of the United States Department of the Treasury, placing commercial interests uncomfortably close to the heart of economic policymaking. QA USA Incorporated describes itself in promotional materials as the fastest-growing tech training company in the United States. However, as of the date of this video's publication, the company does not appear in independently compiled rankings such as the Inc. 5000 or the Financial Times America's fastest-growing companies list. Public records show a single listed U.S. office address, Suite 703, 530 Fifth Avenue, New York. The location is a serviced office suite of under 600 square feet and suitable for 1 to 16 occupants. Not in the ballpark of large standalone corporate headquarters, raising questions about the scale implied by the company's marketing claims. The company's own website map only shows one location in the USA, the rented office. It is a notable contrast between how growth is presented and what is publicly visible. John Paul Jones's 1778 attack on Whitehaven was audacious, deliberate, risky, and unmistakably bold. QA USA Incorporated's approach to building awareness in the American market presents a very different kind of audacity. Rather than a tailored US strategy, the US website appears to be a near copy of the UK version. The main difference is that scheduled training events are not listed for the US. Instead, a contact form is provided. This approach resembles early-stage startup tactics, prioritizing search visibility and lead capture rather than advertising an actual service for the US consumer. For example, a search for an AWS course on the US site leads only to a contact form, while the same search on the UK site displays a full calendar of upcoming training events. The contrast highlights a strategy focused less on transparency and more on capturing interest first, with details deferred until later. So, who is this British knight of the realm who is heading up this massive clickbait marketing drive? In the UK, he is known as Sir Charles Mayfield, but in the Republic of the United States, he is simply Charlie Mayfield. His career spans both industry and retail. He previously held a senior role at pharmaceutical firm GSK. Here he was in charge of marketing a very high-sugar caffeinated drink which contained a known harmful dye. All of the consequences of its consumption being known at the time. One of the more enlightened regions in the UK banned the product due to its links with childhood obesity, tooth decay, and poor behavior. Maybe Charlie has since thought through the ethics of this period, but there is no public apology evident. He later moved into retail, becoming chairman of the John Lewis Partnership, the UK's closest equivalent to Nordstrom. Here he preached employee ownership while taking 66 times the average salary of the mainly female workers. It's worth noting that pirate captains in the 1700s typically only drew twice the salary of a crewman. As the saying goes, every man has his price. He became a knight in 2013 for services to business. There's little detail about Mayfield's knighthood. During a difficult period for John Lewis, Mayfield quit, taking a substantial bonus and pension, and subsequently became associated with CVC Capital Partners, owners of QA Group. The original graphic on the QA site was the polar opposite of the DEI statements that now fill every QA report. Charlie must have been aware of this graphic and allowed it to remain for months despite the surprisingly compromising imagery. No traceable comment or apology has followed. He describes his role with CVC as an advisor while holding the role of chairman of QA Limited, the training provider. Mayfield has other chairman positions which typically provide very substantial income for very little monthly commitment on the part of the holder. The companies engaged with him may see his involvement as bringing kudos to their organization. Recall that historically knights carried double-edged swords. Charles has allowed himself to become a trustee of the British Museum, an advisor for the Department of Work and Pensions and the UK Treasury. Such institutions may not look past the halo effect of his knighthood and simply trust in the British honors system. The United States is a republic for many reasons, with rationality and evidence replacing unquestioned tradition and inherited authority. Charlie Mayfield's clickbait campaign is most likely QA Group's way of acquiring new US-based purchasers for their high-margin digital subscription product. They're clearly unhappy with their client churn and wish to reverse their dramatic learner number reduction from 2025. Any due diligence assessment of CVC's track record inevitably includes its involvement with Debenhams, a retailer sometimes compared to Macy's in the United States. Maybe there's some irony that Debenhams was formed in 1778, the year of John Paul Jones' raid. But then, us Yanks don't do irony. We leave that to people who don't even blink as they sell sugar water to children. CVC was among the owners during a period in which the company became highly leveraged prior to its eventual collapse. CVC profited substantially from the quick flip model applied to Debenhams. For many in the UK, Debenhams had long been a fixture of the high street, and its closure was deeply unpopular. Some 10,000 retail jobs were lost. Mayfield, who claims to promote employee ownership and is widely considered a champion of the retail sector, continued his relationship with CVC during this period. Imagine if the former chairman of Nordstrom became advisor to a private equity firm that applied a quick flip to Macy's, resulting in its collapse. It would be wise to note that CVC have, at the time of this video, open investigations by both the French and Spanish authorities. QA Limited, owned by CVC with Mayfield as chairman, has previously been linked to controversy surrounding apprenticeship delivery. Following issues identified in programs involving KPMG, the UK government removed KPMG's ability to deliver apprenticeship training. QA were the primary subcontractor, and UK government reports documented major quality failings by QA. Since then, QA has continued to derive a significant proportion of its revenue from UK public funding and has continued to provide further instances of self-evidently abysmal service. Naturally, these cannot remain on file for too much longer. One substantial funding stream comes via the UK government's Crown Commercial Services, or CCS. CCS have failed to recoup the costs for the apprenticeship delivery debacle. In turn, CCS have not, as yet, had their delivery program audited by the UK's National Audit Office, or NAO. Analysts and critics have questioned whether this reliance on UK government funding and on the results of potential reviews presents a structural risk. Overseas customers unfamiliar with UK's government funding models and its very slow but steady regulatory processes should spend some time researching these before committing to service subscriptions. Anyway, let's take a look at their promotion pages for their product to take on the States. A feature comparison with an unnamed alternative provider is beyond quixotic. Only a true knight would get that irony. So their seemingly imaginary alternative is very limited. They do seem to have achieved a check mark in a gray circle, though. Maybe they'll pick up and achieve a check in a blue circle in time. They have 3 reviews. Not exactly indicative of the fastest growing training company in the US. 2 of the reviews from the same customer say they like the Amazon Web Service hands-on labs. Amazon Labs are available from Pearson. You can get AI-enabled toothbrushes now. Doesn't mean it's a good idea. QA are pushing Ella. Let's take a look at their marketing materials. An AWS developer is a smart cookie by definition. Ella is pretty lowbrow and likens AWS Lambda to choosing and eating pizza, which is apparently your code. Given that code is typically reusable, Ella should point out the need to regurgitate your pizza. This is just more regurgitated slop from the sloppiest of organizations. Apparently 35 years of QA's effort is embodied here in AI form. Someone needs to train Ella about QA's 40-year history, or is it that Ella recognizes that the last 5 years QA have been trading on brand, not quality, and that half a decade is best forgotten? While you're here, look at this. They managed to knock off 40% on their prime product line. If your Chevy dealer did that, you'd know that they've been overpriced and taking your dollars for all those years and you'd never go back. Not to mention that this undercuts the average 10% saving that the UK's Crown Commercial Services offer. This means QA skills license purchasers may have been undercut and could have a difficult time answering a Freedom of Information request in regard to the savings they believe they have made. Loss of their skills license program would flatten QA and QA USA incorporated with it. What's clear is that QA are happy to rip off their potential and existing customers on a whim. Loyalty isn't a facet of this knight-led charge. QA expect you to just go with their branding and buy into their marketing. The question is, with even the best AI hallucinating and producing slop, who would buy beta AI? It would only seem fair to let Charlie have the last word. However, the UK has the Nolan principles about the nearest thing the UK has to a constitution. Charlie's actions over the last few years effectively break each of these, making him a liability for QA and any organization associated with him. Charlie has managed to dress QA's 2025 as well as he can, but the trend is a dramatic downward slide. We've covered some of the reasons for this, and the risk profile for QA in 2026 isn't a good look. Mayfield claims that QA is trusted and provide high-quality skills and education. During COVID, he directed furloughed workers to his high-priced training, profiteering in a time of crisis and breaking public trust. There are multiple UK government sources indicating extremely poor quality service provision. Driving social impact sounds magnanimous, but this is from the 1990s marketing manager for Lucozade. Knowing the negative health impacts of an extremely high-sugar, caffeinated, and brightly colored drink didn't stop him from promoting it. John Paul Jones, during the Whitehaven raid, made certain that no working people were hurt. In contrast, Mayfield's product had ingredients known at the time to lead to obesity, tooth decay, behavioral issues, and potentially some cancers. Liverpool Council banned the product. In 2025, he profited by shamelessly heading up the Keep Britain Working Review, stating that workplace health is a shared societal responsibility. So he doesn't get the last word. The documentation and the figures do. As we've illustrated, QA USA Incorporated is actually a pseudo-startup owned by a legacy training company. That company, QA Group, is running out of ideas to prop up the income stream of a group of billionaires and their hangers-on. QA's risk profile is not merely theoretical to a purchaser of their QA USA Incorporated products. Public filings and their own reports show that the QA experienced sharp declines between 2024 and 2025. This is alongside material debt levels and an expensive credit facility. In short, QA need your dollars. These figures appear in the company's own 2025 report, which is publicly available via QA's website and via the UK government. Before we consider what Jones would think, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for all the latest news. Researching this video led to so much material that is of public interest that we have another half-dozen videos to release on QA Group alone. One video demonstrates that QA's public training is deficient by design in order to maximize revenue. Their own documentation describes this. This company is a provider to the NHS, military, and government. Anyway, maybe Jones' question would be the same as yours. Ask yourself, do we need this UK-based billionaire-owned company with dubious integrity pushing its higher gross margin online training service in an already crowded market? Maybe it's best to stick with Udemy or work with providers in the US or overseas who actually provide real value rather than knowingly inflated prices. John Paul Jones, during the Battle of Flamborough Head, was noted to have said, "I have not yet begun to fight." When it comes to QA USA Incorporated, simply say, "I will not begin to buy." You get the feeling that Jones would admire that.